Wish you could translate your dreams into actual success? Check out this interview with Liz Elting. You're going to hear an incredible story about how she translated her dreams into $1 billion business from her dorm room. And she figured it out, and she's going to help you figure it out too. So let's listen in to Liz Elting as she helps us translate our dreams into actual success. Oh, don't forget, subscribe, like this video so more people hear about it and see it, and hit that reminder button so you hear about future videos that we've got coming up. Let's listen in.
And I have to start here with all the lessons in this project that you have. So many of these, I feel like, are just noticing some of the little things. And I'll give you an example. You learned a lot about clothing and the importance of dress at a laundromat early on. I think this is a great place to start. Do you mind sharing that story?
When I turned 16, I was actually able to get a real job, an official job where you get a paycheck and they take the taxes out. And that first job I got was at a dry cleaner's. And I remember people would walk in and drop off the most beautiful clothes. I remember speaking to a woman, and I figured she had some high-powered career, and that's how she bought these beautiful clothes. And she said, yes. And she told me what she did for a living when I asked. And then she said, but dress for the career you want, not the career you have. And I thought, okay, that's an easy thing. Once I can afford to buy these clothes, I'm going to dress to kill. And I do love fashion. So that was the fun part of working in the cleaners.
You begin this story talking about you just got your MBA and you're moving into the dorms. Congratulations. Let's talk about getting the MBA and why and how you got your MBA.
Thank you for catching that, because that is exactly how it happened. People always say, oh, you started your company from a college dorm room. And it's like, well, no, it wasn't college, and it was right after grad school. So yes, what happened was to go a little further back, I loved languages growing up. I had studied 4 languages by the time I graduated from high school. I majored in languages in college.
You lived in Portugal for a while.
Yes. When I was growing up, exactly. When I was 8 and 9, I lived in Portugal. And then when I was 10, I moved to Toronto. So by the time I graduated from high school, as I said, I was able to study 4 languages: Portuguese, French, Spanish, and Latin. And then I came back to the U.S. for college. I came to New York, and I have lived here ever since. When I got to New York, I was able to find a job at a translation company. And I thought, wow, how perfect is that? Combining my love for languages and business. I didn't know such a thing existed, but it was a wonderful place. I loved the culture and I loved the industry, but thought it could be done better. So after 3 years there, I went back to school, got my MBA from NYU Stern, right here in the city, and then graduated. Now, shortly after graduating, I still didn't have a job and I had no money. And this was a recession. This was in 1992, sort of the end of a recession. So moved back into NYU dorms.
But I actually want to rewind, if that's all right, just a bit, because I just have so many questions about, you're in this career, you're working for this company, you're doing something you clearly love, right? And your book even has the word passion on it. You're passionate about this. So why the decision then to go into and get an MBA? Because I know there's people listening to us right now or watching us right now that are maybe at that point. They're like, do I go back to school? Do I not go back to school? What was your decision-making criteria to leave that job?
That's a great question. You're absolutely right. Because as I said, it was the perfect way to combine my passion for languages and my desire to be a business person. So I did love the company. I was first in production there, and then I moved over to the sales side. So I had first dealt with getting the jobs done, and then I started really dealing with the clients. And I saw a real gap between what clients needed and what was available in the industry, as far as service, as far as quality, as far as turnaround time, as far as deliverables, as far as creating a one-stop shop. So, and I also, the other piece of it is, even though this company at the time was the largest translation company in the industry, it was about 90 people, it was a relatively flat organization. I didn't know how I really was going to grow there over time. So I thought, okay, I majored in modern languages in college, but I'm missing the business piece from an educational standpoint. Yes, I'm learning business, but an MBA could really help me. It could help me get a job in another industry, maybe international banking, maybe something else. And I even put the idea in my head, maybe one day I will start a translation company because I love this industry and I have a thought on how it can be done better. But I need to first get the business education, number one, and number two, save some money. Because how do you start a company with no money? So that was the thought.
There's a part of the story, Liz, that I love, and there's a part that I hate. The part that I love is that you said, I'm going to need to have some money to start this company, and I can't start a company with nothing, so I definitely am going to have to put some money away. So I like that. The part that I didn't love, maybe hate was a strong term, but the part that I didn't love was that you have this thing that you really like doing, and you're in this industry, and and you even say in the book, you kind of stifled that to go into this thing where you thought you could make big money. In fact, you went to your dad for advice, right? And he told you, he gave you, I think, some great advice about your money follows.
Yes, he did. Well, certainly he did when I was torn on what to do when I was in college. And I said, boy, I love languages, but what on earth am I going to do with a modern language major? I'm interested in business. And he said, pursue your passion and the rest will work out. And obviously that's precisely what happened. But you're right. Why did I stop being in the translation industry? I think, as I said, it was because I thought the company could do things better. And I didn't have the power at the company. I was just a kid. I was in my early 20s. So I couldn't change what the company was doing. So that was one issue. I didn't know how I would grow in that company. So I thought maybe having a language degree, a degree in modern languages was great for undergrad, but that MBA could be helpful in opening up my opportunities for different jobs. So that's why I went back to school. And I'm glad I did.
So you finish your MBA, you get this job working for a trading firm, and being a money podcast. I want to talk about this for a little bit, Liz, because you're super excited. The first company you work for with your undergrad has a lot of camaraderie, a lot of friends. So you're thinking, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to be friends with all these people. Tell us about this experience. Give us a little story about what that trading floor was like.
Yes. So yes, as you said, Joe, the other company I worked at, it was my second family. All these great people who became my friends. Walked into the trading floor. First thing I noticed was I'm the only woman here, the only woman. And I love men. I do. I was always boy crazy my entire time growing up. But I thought, okay, I might feel a little bit, awkward here, but that's okay. And then very quickly, a few things happened. Whenever the phone rang, the guys would yell, Liz, phone, because I was the woman. So I had to get the phone. I was the receptionist, even though that was not part of the deal. They were not. None of them were going to get the phone. So that was one thing. And then when I went back to my boss to say, is there anything else I can do when I finished my work early and stayed till midnight? He said, well, you can go in the supply closet and see what supplies we need. And you can go around to each of the guys and ask them what they need. So
Unbelievable.
And then finally, and this is the most important point, though, of all, I had loved the translation industry. As I said, I loved languages. I loved solving clients' problems. I loved people. And at this proprietary trading division of the French bank, there was none of that. It was literally putting numbers in a spreadsheet, numbers after numbers after numbers, and then filling out forms and faxing them, and then faxing another form and another form and another form. And it was such a different industry. And I thought, I don't enjoy this job, and I can't imagine enjoying anybody's jobs here. And even though I always believe in the philosophy, quitters never win and winners never quit. So I thought, oh my God, I just got my MBA. I have this job. It's doing equity arbitrage. That sounds really good. At a French bank. How perfect. How can I quit now that, I just started? But I realized in my heart, it was not sustainable. I could not do it. So after 4 weeks, I said to my boss, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. So I worked 2 more weeks and then out the door. That was my aha moment when I gave notice and quit and decided to start my translation company. So I think the key is finding something you love that you're passionate about, and then finding a way to make money at it.
So you're obviously going from this job that it was just horrible, but you are now risking everything. You're going to start this business. What's the first thing that you thought about when you're starting your new business?
Great question. The first thing I thought about was sales, sales, sales. I was not thinking about, okay, need to create the perfect business plan, the perfect debt, and go get funding. No, not in a million years. I knew that would take a lot of time and effort and is very difficult to do. I also felt, and that's still the case today, I mean, at least as much. I also knew that even if I went through all that, in the end, those investors and I would still need revenues. We still need sales, right? I mean, it's interesting because all the years I was doing what I did, we used to say revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. Now, that was because people would talk all about their revenues, but they'd be losing money. But now I'd even say funding is vanity and revenue and profit are sanity, because usually once you get that revenue in, you can figure out a way to be profitable. You do your best to. And certainly, profit is what it all comes down to.
It's like the blood flow.
Yes, you need that revenue. There is no way you will last. The number one, if you don't have it, the number one reason companies go out of business is they run out of cash. So you need that revenue. You need it more than anything. And you can't be spending all your time or most of your time fundraising, because in the end, if you don't have the sales, you're not going to make it. And the sales take time, especially in the beginning. As we know, the first million is by far the toughest, or the first 5 million. That can take years. And then once you get that action in, then it becomes so much easier. So that's where the effort needs to go.
You spent a lot of time at the beginning cold calling. You have a hilarious section early in your book called "You Never Forget Your First Time." So the phone rings one day. You must remember this like it's yesterday, the day the phone finally rings, Liz.
I do, because it was all outbound calls. It was all me calling them. And finally, the phone rang, and I picked it up, and they said, okay, are you able to translate a document from English into Slovak? It's a contract. It's 3 pages. And I said, yes, absolutely. We do that all the time. And they said, how long will that take? I said, we can do it in 3 days. Does that work for you? And they said, yes, absolutely. And I hung up the phone like, oh my God, did we really do this? Did this really come through? Because even though I had done that type of thing before for 3 years and, hundreds or thousands of jobs at the other company I was at, Your America, there's nothing like your first job, your first project, all that work for that project. And that was just the best feeling.
I just, even hearing you say it now, I just think just this idea that my baby has some legs, my baby's taken off.
Yes. Yes. And then I tell a couple of funny stories in the book, which we don't have to talk about now, but about how somehow that very client, that first client, wanted to stop by and check out the office when it was time to return the job. And I dealt with that issue. And then the second client did the same thing. And they didn't even tell me they were coming by. They surprised me at the front door. So lots of drama in the beginning in that dorm room. And what that taught me was the goal was to be able to pay for an office. And back then, you really needed an office. Obviously, now everybody works remotely. But back then, you needed an impressive address. Even if you had almost no space, you needed an impressive address. So the goal was within 6 months to be able to move into a real office. And we took all the actions we needed to do. It was sales, 300 phone calls a day, 300 letters a day to get the revenue to be able to pay for that first office. And at the end of 6 months, we were able to move into that first office.
There is one thing from early on. I saw you in another interview talk about that you do regret. And that's with a partner that you hadn't really paid any attention to contracts at the beginning. Can we talk to our future business owners out there about what you learned from that experience, Liz? Because I think this is huge for anybody starting a business.
It is huge. And by the way, and my book, and I appreciate so much of what you're bringing up and what you remember from the early days, it's about what I did right and what I did wrong. And you know, it's kind of beach read, business read, but this is a very important lesson. And it was a huge mistake. In the early days, I started with a partner. As I said, we had no money and we didn't hire an attorney to start the company. We didn't hire an accountant. We just did it on our own. But obviously we had to spend money on something. I mean, the minimal money we had, that money has to go to something we didn't have. And that would be a shareholders agreement. We had no shareholders agreement. And we set it up as 50-50 owners, that we were each 50-50 owners without a shareholders agreement. So what that meant is we didn't have anything defined as far as roles, responsibilities, decision-making, dispute resolution, what happens in the event of death, disability, divorce, and a buy-sell provision. If one of us wants to sell, if we're not getting along and someone needs to buy and someone needs to sell, nothing, no way that the company would be valued. So, you know, no process for that. And that caused all kinds of problems along the way. You know, it's interesting because after, I guess it was 22 years, I finally needed to pursue litigation. And what I asked for was a custodian to be put in charge to resolve deadlock in the short term and oversee the sale of the company in the longer term, whereby I could buy him out, he could buy me out, my partner, that is, or a third party could buy us both out. And I did get what I wanted, which was that custodian to set up a plan for sale where that happened. And it was to maximize shareholder value in the process. But I needed to spend $50 million of my own money. Number one. But the other piece of it is, and this is all because I didn't have a proper shareholders agreement, but the other piece of it was there's something else missing that I should have had in that shareholders agreement. And I've even had conversations in the last week with a few different people who don't necessarily have this in their shareholders agreement. So for people who are starting companies and creating these, assuming you don't want the flexibility to go and compete after you sell your company, make sure you have a non-compete agreement with your partner or partners. Because in my case, I was never able to get that. And even when I litigated, I couldn't get that. And had I gotten that, I would have been able to cash out for quite a bit more. And I did very well. I'm very fortunate, but it could have made a difference in as far as, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars more had I had that non-compete, had we had to sign that with one another. So I think that's an important piece too. But I think the big lesson there is certainly you need a shareholders agreement. Secondly, I would avoid being 50-50 owners if you can. If you only have one partner, make it so you own more than 50% and you are the deciding vote. Because
51,
yes, or exactly 51, because that was hard every day. We were fighting, we were disagreeing. Somehow we made it through, and we made it through 26 years, which is longer than a lot of partnerships, but it was rocky. There were fights. It was crazy. And so you want to be the decision maker if you can. Very important.
Wow. It's just a $50 million lesson. Well, even more than that, to your point. And it put a pit in my stomach. Well, as I'm hoping our stackers can see, there were so many lessons here. And I was laughing with you, Liz. I was crying with you. I was learning so much from Liz's lessons. The book is called Dream Big and Win, Translating Passion into Purpose and Creating a Billion-Dollar Business. Liz, it's available everywhere right now, right?
Yes, and it can be bought on Amazon or other online retailers like Barnes and Noble, etc. But yes, absolutely.
We have so many discussions, now about passion and purpose, and you helped us so much today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. I loved our conversation.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Man, that's inspiring. Liz Elting has really figured it out, and I learned a lot from her. Make sure you check out the Stacking Benjamins podcast, where we've got tons of great guests like this, lots of other great information for you about your personal finances and how to increase your personal life and your professional life. You got to check us out. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the reminder button so you learn more about other videos we've got coming up, and like it. Why wouldn't you? It's a great video, right? So hit the like button. Thanks, everybody.